Hello, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Coach again. Today, we are going to be talking about the food web, food chain, and the energy flow. We've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks, and now it's time to watch a video from the website. It's called Generation Genius. So, from now on, we will be watching a lot of videos from this website as well, and I will be pausing here and there during the video to make it understandable. Okay? So let's get started.
Oh, man.
Hey, Izzy. Hey, Bert. What are you guys looking at?
Oh, Zoe, check this out.
I don't see what's so crazy about it. Whoa!
Oh, man. Guess it's a lucky thing to be a frog. Frog like anyone? We're not.
Dr. Jeff, check out this video.
Oh, neat. That's awesome.
What? You mean you're not shocked by this?
Nope. You see, every living thing in an ecosystem is food for another living thing.
Even robots?
That's a great sentence, actually. Every living thing in the ecosystem is a food for another living thing. So basically, there's a chain going on.
Don't worry, Bert. I don't think anyone finds wiring and circuits very appetizing.
So you're saying that all animals are connected to the animals that eat them?
Yes, but it's not just animals. Even plants, bacteria, even the sun is a part of the food web.
Dr. Jeff, how is everything under the sun all connected?
Great question, Izzy. Let's investigate. I'm Dr. Jeff Binnicker, and today we're going to explore the science of food web. We'll learn that food of almost any kind can be traced back to the sun. We'll explore how a food web is made of intersecting food chains. And we'll discuss how decomposers break down dead organisms. With Dr. Jeff. Welcome to Labracazam, where we make science make sense. Quick question, why do animals eat other animals?
They eat to get energy and building blocks to help them grow and repair.
That's right. And where does that energy come from?
The energy in food can be traced back to the sun. The sun shines light energy down on plants, which use photosynthesis to turn carbon dioxide and water into sugar. And since plants produce their own food, we call them producers.
And plants are consumed by animals, which we call consumers. For example, the sun shines down on the plants, which are then eaten by cows, which are then eaten by people.
Plants use the sun's energy to create food, which
So that's the main sentence, basically. Plants use the sun energy to create food. That's the whole thing started. Comes from the sun. Let's circle it down. And it gives you the grass. And this whole process is called photosynthesis. Okay, so this is called photosynthesis. Do not forget, because that's part of the state test questions too. Let's continue.
is then eaten by this caterpillar, giving energy to the caterpillar, which is then eaten by a bird, that is then in turn eaten by a snake, which is eaten by this eagle.
Whoa, great job, guys. I'm impressed. What you just described is a food chain. That's a sequence of living things in which each one feeds on the one below it. The flow of energy in a food chain always starts from the sun. Without the sun, there would be no plants. It's also important to note that there are typically only a few steps in a food chain because each time energy is transferred by one animal eating another, some of that energy leaves the food chain as heat. So if there are too many steps, there wouldn't be enough energy left for the living things at the top of the food chain.
I thought this lesson was about food webs.
We're getting there. A food web is made of many intersecting food chains, since most animals don't just eat one thing. All living things in an ecosystem are linked together in the food web. We can use a food web diagram like this one to study how energy and matter flow in an ecosystem.
Well, that got complex pretty fast.
Can be a little bit overwhelming. Let's look at some animal examples and where they fit on the food web. I think that means it's time for a field trip! Today we're at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. It's in Florida, and they have over 12,000 animals here from all parts of the food web. Let's look at some examples.
So this is Evan. She is a great horned owl, and they are definitely the top of the food chain. They're what we call the apex predator.
Well, since they're at the top, do they have any predators?
They do not. But when a great horned owl's all grown up, they don't really get eaten by anybody else.
What do they eat?
They eat everything that's up to their own size. So they're gonna eat mice and rats. They're gonna eat frogs, snakes, things that they find at night.
So how does an apex predator like this help control the balance of the food web?
So apex predator is the one that is nobody is trying to eat, or he's not the prey of anyone. So there might be some specific cases, but when we say it apex predator, that means the top predator.
So apex predators are absolutely critical for the health of the ecosystem. So what they do is they basically keep everybody else in check. And they keep those populations from getting too high. If you don't have apex predators, then all the other animals they eat start multiplying and they get out of control. And then they're gonna eat all of the grass and the seeds. And then those animals are gonna die off, and it just collapses the whole ecosystem without them. So they're really critical for the environment.
So for a food web to work, you need lots of different organisms interacting in a balance.
So where do zebras fit in the food web?
Zebras are right smack dab in the middle. Below them, they've got grass that they eat, and they can control the growth there. And then above them, predators will help to control those numbers.
What kind of predators hunt zebras?
Mainly hyena, spotted hyena, and lions.
Most people think that it's good to have no predators, and they kind of feel sad when something eats a zebra. But why is that important?
It's important for every animal to have something that controls its numbers. In this case, zebras are controlled by lions and spotted hyena.
Got it. So everything is in balance. If there were too many zebras, they would eat all the grass, and there'd be no more grass for the other animals. If there was too many predators, then they would eat all the zebras. And then there would be too much grass, and you could have a big wildfire. So the key is everything in the food web is balanced. This is an African millipede, and Jennifer here can tell us more about it.
So the giant African millipede is a decomposer, which means that it eats dead and decaying material on the forest floor. And it's really important because otherwise it would just build up over time, and they need to be able to eat it and break it down to create nice soil for plants to grow again.
Are there any other type of decomposers?
There are other decomposers, things like roaches. So another animal that lives right alongside the millipede are things like African roaches.
What part of the food web are these?
So they kind of fit in a few different places. They help.
So we're talking about the decomposers. Those are the ones that are breaking down the dead matter and the animal. So this one that they're talking about is a decomposer.
Decompose food, but then they're also eaten by things like birds, frogs, snakes, even small mammals.
So a millipede is a decomposer that eats dead and decaying living things, but it also can be eaten by birds, rodents, and other animals that find it a tasty snack. So it's all interconnected, and this helps break it all down. Millipedes aren't the only kind of decomposer. Worms and other bugs all help break down dead stuff. However, most decomposing on Earth is done by bacteria and fungi. You need a microscope to see bacteria, but when billions of them work together, they can decompose organisms in a matter of days. Fungi come in many different shapes and sizes, one of which is a mushroom. They break down dead trees and leaves. Decomposers are important because they recycle matter by breaking it down into nutrients that plants use. Without this recycling of matter, lots of dead things would just pile up.
Wow, I never knew how interconnected so many different animals and plants were to the food web. Now I want to see how this affects me when I leave the lab. It's time for some real world science. We are continually learning about different ways in which human behavior has the unintended effect of disrupting food webs. For one, overhunting removes an important balance in the food web. If a predator, like a wolf, is overhunted, it can lead to a boom in the population of its prey. This happened recently with the white-tailed deer. As their predators vanished, deer population exploded. They overgrazed the local plant life, disabling its ability to grow again. We also see a disruptive impact with deforestation. As forests are torn down for lumber, there's nothing to stop the soil from washing away into rivers and oceans. This has been directly linked to the extinction of fish species. By simply removing one animal from the web, it has a direct domino effect on any species that preyed on that one. In light of these disruptions, many people are finding ways to decrease our negative impact on the food web. We see this around us every day in the form of wildlife crossings, overpasses, underpasses, amphibian tunnels, and green roofs. Now, let's kick it over to Zoe.
Today, I'm going to show you how to promote plant growth by making homemade compost. To get started, we're going to need some twigs, leaves, and a whole lot of food waste like eggshells, tea bags, coffee grounds, apple cores, and some orange and banana peels. Be careful not to slip on them. Since we're handling some dirty stuff, we should always start by practicing proper hygiene. First, collect all those food scraps together and mix them up into a big wet pile. That's perfect. Now it's time to go outside and get started. We're going to use this plant pot as our compost bin. You can use any kind of big bucket. You just need to make sure there are holes on the bottom for drainage and air circulation. Let's start by laying your twigs on the bottom to let the air flow through our compost pile. Mash together. On top of this, add a layer of our dry compost. In this case, that means our leaves. And then add water. Over time, bacteria and fungi naturally decompose the material into simple substances. That provides plants with the rich nutrients to help them grow. This could take 6 months, but when it's done, it will look like this. Try it yourself.
Thanks, Zoe. Now, let's review. Today, we learned that a food web is a model made of intersecting food chains.
That food of almost any kind can be traced back to the sun.
And that decomposers break down dead organisms.
Okay, so that's all for today. We took a look at from a different perspective, a little bit interactive and a little bit colorful instead of just me talking. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.